Okay, everybody. I have something really cool to tell you about. If you haven't heard yet about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain here. It's free. There are creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, and more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one single place. Now, the way that you can do this is you got to download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm, and then you can get started. It's really fun. We just switched over recently here at All Too Real 2, and I'm enjoying it so far. So be sure to check it out and let us know what you think. Okay, everybody, welcome to the latest episode of All Too Real 2. I am Michael E. Cullen II, and with me via social distancing for the moment is
Matthew House.
House.
Yeah.
Like House MD, like the doctor?
Yeah, pretty much. I'm not a licensed doctor though, but
You're not?
no.
Pretty sure he wasn't either.
Not anymore.
He was a fictional character.
Not anymore. Yeah, he was a character, yeah.
You're not anymore? You lost your medical license?
Yeah, a long time ago. Couldn't get it back. You know, too much red tape and all that jazz, so.
It was hidden under red
No
tape?
biggie. Yeah. I stole a lot of red tape from one of the supply rooms, and they're like, you know what? We're tired of you stealing tape all the time. Why do you need so much tape?
Hate that when that happens, man.
True. Well, I didn't need it. I just liked it. Just like tape for some reason. I don't know why. Just like don't even like using it. Just like having the rolls just sitting there for no reason, just collecting dust. You know, we all have our things.
Yeah. One day they'll be worth money.
Maybe.
So, anyways, today we are doing a special topic here. A little bit of a topic on like what they refer to, the word that I don't really like, the phrase I don't really like, is cancel culture. And more specifically about J.K. Rowling and her recent posts that were very transphobic and, things of that nature. Matthew has done a lot of research on the author of the Harry Potter series. What have you found out, Matthew?
A lot, and it's kind of hard to piece it all together because it's just so much information on this topic, which doctors and therapists and psychiatrists and trans people themselves have done so much research on this, because in a lot of cases trans people have to pretty much do their own research first in order to inform, their doctors and therapists about certain things, because, in a lot of cases, the professionals don't really do a whole lot of studying on their own. They kind of just learn what they learn from like stuff from like 1950s and don't really, do much updating on it unless like they have to, essentially. So like, to be trans in like a lot of places in the world, you know, you have to be assertive just to get shit done, because otherwise most people are just gonna run you over. But according to J.K. Rowling's you know, version of reality, that makes you a quote trans activist, and that somehow is a bad thing, which is interesting to me because that's like saying like the only good version of a person of any group is to like not be an activist, like just you know, be quiet, keep your head down, you know, be one of the good ones, you know, which, you know, we've heard people talk about black people that way, we've heard people talk about gay people that way, you know, just, you know, don't be an activist, just you know, be yourself. And it's like, well, that's the point.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the whole argument right now after the George Floyd thing, where people are like, well, you know, if everybody just stopped talking about racism, it wouldn't exist.
I'm sorry, that's just ridiculous.
Yeah, I've actually had that argument given to me online, so it's just like, you know, if you stop talking about this stuff, people wouldn't care as much, or it wouldn't be. I'm like, yeah, the point is they need to care.
They need to care, and like I said, if they're not assertive, people will just steamroll over them. So it's, you know, like to be trans in pretty much every country in the world, it forces you into that role. The society itself forces you into that role because the majority of the governments and the laws, they are stacked against you just for existing. So like your very act of existing as a human being automatically puts you into the role of an activist, whether or not you actually want that to be the case. So like this whole idea that like, oh well, you know, like she makes, you know, I'm kind of gonna go all over the place as far as like chronology, timeline or whatever.
Yeah.
But basically, in her manifesto that she wrote, which, you know, she claims is just like a well-reasoned argument based off of years of research she's done, which I don't believe she's done years of research, and even if she has, it sounds like it's just one-sided. It just sounds like the cult that she's in, which is, they call themselves gender critical, but the other name for them, which they claim is a misogynist slur, is TERF, which stands for trans exclusionary radical feminism, or feminist. And they claim that this term itself is a misogynistic slur, even though the term itself was actually coined by a cisgender radical feminist. Cisgender basically just means the opposite of trans. Trans means you transitioning, just like, you know, the transnational railroad, the trans whatever, it means like you're crossing from one thing to another. Cis is pretty much like means like you are like the same as like how you, like your body reflects how you see yourself. So it just basically means the opposite of trans. So the term TERF was actually coined by a cisgender radical feminist who only did it meant to be as a descriptor to make a difference between radical feminists who includes transgender people into their activism and those radical feminists who want to exclude transgender people. So it's like my whole thing is like, how can you like the only way you could claim that is an insult to you or a misogynistic slur is after sorry, I can't talk, is if what was that?
I have no idea.
That was weird. Is if there's like a sliver of like self-awareness in you that you yourself know that these beliefs are like bigoted, because like if like you consider yourself a feminist and you want to exclude trans people, how is that term an insult to you? It's just describing what you yourself believe and what you state your beliefs are. But, you know, so I don't understand how that is an insult. It's like saying like you belong to the KKK and in your manifesto you say I don't like black people, and someone says, well, this person's racist by definition, like, how dare you call me a racist? It's like, well, that's literally the definition of the word and what you believe. Like you can't be mad about a word that means what you are. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
exactly.
I'm overstating it because it just seems so simple that any logical person would know that. Like,
it's you can't really you can't argue the fact that what your definition of something describes who you are and then try to say that you're not that, because that doesn't make any sense.
Right.
And that's so, kind of what she's doing, right?
Yeah, basically. I mean, she even like did like a little sarcastic quip when she posted a manifesto to her actual website, but then she put a link to it on Twitter and it said turf wars. And then of course it's interesting because her whole thing is about free speech and how the the millennials and Zoomers have gone too far. But yet she made it so no one can comment on that article and no one can retweet from that article. But yeah, free speech, so that's interesting. A little dichotomy there. But okay. I guess again, just like all right-wing people, it's free speech for me, not for the seems to be the universal belief among that type. And I do deliberately call J.K. Rowling right-wing because at this point she is, because anti-transgender sentiments and feelings is inherently and innately right-wing in nature. You can call yourself whatever you want. That's just like they say, that's just the facts. Well, okay, that's just the facts then for you. You can't claim to be a progressive if you're holding like objectively anti-progressive views. It just doesn't make any sense. So be happy with who you are. You embrace that shit. Go ahead, live your life. That's you. But don't say that you are something else. I'm a left-wing person or I'm a liberal person, and then you're actually really just conservative. Like, just be happy that just like they say, you've made the transition. Well, okay, you've made the transition from being, a nice liberal, progressive lady, who's written these books. I'm sorry, I'm just getting ahead of myself here. So basically,
no, go ahead.
This is a little personal for me because I love the Harry Potter books so much, and they're one of my favorite book series of all times. I've read each book probably at least 5 times. Real reading, not audiobook listening, like actual get the book, the paper, read the words. Which takes much longer than audiobooks and watching the movies. I've studied Harry Potter almost like on a theory level, even like looking into all these little like nuances in the books and characters. I mean, I've treated Harry Potter, very respectfully as a fan, for many years, really since like 2007. And I read the first book in 1997 when I was a kid. But then I didn't really read much after that, and I kind of got back into it in 2005. So yeah, it's been a part of my life really for a long time, and to see the author pretty much just shit, and so many of her fans, in her mind, just because I have a difference of opinion, it's like no, it's like, difference of opinion is I like apple pie, you like cherry pie. Saying I don't think you should exist and have rights is not, but you do, but you think you should have rights, so therefore we just have an academic disagreement of opinion. No, that's the dishonest
that argument is so annoying. Human rights are not an opinion. That's just basically bigotry. It's nothing else more than that. I mean nothing less than that. It's just so annoying because I've had so many people lately, especially since the Black Lives Matter movement has gotten more, active lately, where people just can't really understand the whole idea of why saying something like all lives matter in response is bad. And then they said, well, that's just my opinion. And I'm like, you don't get to choose when something is offensive to somebody. You don't. Right. That's what I'm saying. It's like you can say that, oh, yeah, the fact is all lives do matter, but it's, I don't know. It's just so annoying. It's like getting so frustrating lately with people thinking that bigotry is an opinion.
Right.
It's bigotry. It might be an opinion, but when it gets to that point where, like you're saying, like, yeah, you like apple pie, I like cherry pie. That's, you know what I mean? That's okay. Like, you're a Beatles fan, I'm a Stones fan. That's fine. I like NSYNC, you like the Backstreet Boys. That's fine. But when you're, saying something
Right.
that's racist or sexist or transphobic or whatever have you, that's just not right, That's not an opinion. That's
Right, yeah.
human rights.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I've been hearing this stuff too about the people who, like, for example, too, there was this guy at one of the protests a few weeks ago. He took a bow and arrow and said all lives matter, and then tried to shoot a black protester. Like that right there just shows what that quote means. Like all in one picture.
Yeah.
Like a white guy with an arrow saying all lives matter, and then tries to kill a black person. Like, wait, what?
All except for that dude, I guess, that he tried to hit, Fuck.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'll try to, because she wrote so many. It's like part of the quote unquote gender critical feminists. Part of their technique, which is not unlike a lot of the right wing people, is that they tend to flood their articles with so much misinformation that it's like you don't know what to hang on to because it's all lies. So it just overloads your brain because you're like, how do I debunk every single point made here, because it's going to take like 5 books to do this. So that's a tactic that pretty much all right, like far right wing people do, which gender critical feminists are. And I don't just say that because I disagree with them. They're fundamentalist Christian groups, right wing fundamentalist Christian groups throughout UK and the US have been making alliances with trans exclusionary radical feminists and gender critical feminists since the 1970s. And it's that whole thing of politics make strange bedfellows. There's no way that the trans exclusionary radical feminists agree with the religious fundamentalists, because these people believe that women should be put back to like the 1800s or the 1600s as far as rights are concerned. But they both hate trans people. So here's a way that we can forge an alliance, to attack our common enemy, which is a vulnerable minority. But that's interesting. Okay. I mean, I understand the right-wing religious people doing that, but to claim to be a feminist and doing that seems odd. Okay. And what happens is over time, it always happens this way. What starts off as an alliance of convenience, the two camps start merging into each other. They start influencing each other's positions. So you'll start to see the TERFs, or the gender critical feminists, becoming more right wing politically because of the people they're associating with. And sometimes you'll see the right wing religious people, they start softening their views on women, on the rights of women, because they're being influenced by the quote unquote gender critical feminists. And admittedly, the feminists are so-called feminists are more, it seems like they take on the right wing views more so than the religious people take on, because usually when you're part of a fundamentalist church, you're kind of taught like you don't ever budge, you make them budge for you type of thing. So they're kind of already brought up with the idea that like you make them come to you essentially. So usually, they might not be as willing to like take on, the views of the TERF or the alliance that they're making, but sometimes they do. So this is what's been happening for a long time, and it's been happening a lot more frequently within the past 5 or 6 years or so. And that was not surprisingly when transgender people started to gain more rights in these countries. So they like the right wing, and especially like the right wing religious groups, they kind of gave up on the war against gay people. I mean, it's still there a little bit, but they realized that there was just too much public acceptance of gay people, and even then it's not perfect acceptance, but they realized that they've lost this war. They're not going to win this war, so they turn it all on trans people. And it's actually very telling, because they use pretty much the same arguments now about trans people that they did about gay people back in the 70s and 80s. I mean, if you just look up stuff from the 80s and 70s, like their propaganda, it's pretty much the same thing. Gay men are pedophiles, they're predators, don't let them be alone with children because they're perverts, etc. same thing now about trans people. Trans people shouldn't be in bathrooms with cisgender people because think of the children, think of the poor children and what they could do to them. It's the same exact argument. So I understand it from the right wing religious people because that's consistent with their beliefs. But like, if you're calling yourself a feminist and you're advancing these like moralistic, conservative doctrines of religious people, it just seems like either you're stupid or you're intentionally ignoring what you're doing. Like,
I mean, basically, what they're doing is they keep jumping from one quote unquote other to another, you know, because it's basically like, first off, it was like, oh, all these black people are gonna marry our white women and you know, are gonna rape them or whatever, you know, have you know, and so that was bad. And then then even when it came to before that, there was even like, oh, women can't vote. That's just wrong, you know. And then they jump from that, and then they jump to like to gay people, and then now to trans people. It's just they need to find that other to attack. And once one is more accepted, like once, you know, civil rights happened, so we can't really attack black people as much, even though they still do to a point. Not as bad as they used to, but still bad enough. But you know, it's like, oh, we can't, you know, we can't be sexist, we can't be racist, so let's now be transphobic. You know, that's basically what they're doing. You know, it's just, it's like they need somebody to hate. And yet then they claim that, oh, you know, it's the liberal people who are causing all the hate because they're trying to tear down statues and they're trying to, you know, bring down the moral fiber of our country or some bullshit. You know, no, it's you that are trying to attack what you consider to be an other. You know, it's just
right.
Just because you don't understand it or take the time to even understand it.
Right. So I know I'm like kind of all over the place here, but like, so I'll just like do some like real meat and potatoes here, just to,
okay.
Because I right now I'm kind of talking abstractly. I need to kind of focus a little bit because I'm getting kind of spacey here, trying to make sense of it all. So like,
yeah. Speaking of cancel culture, spacey, and
yeah, spacey.
Kevin.
Good one. Spacey.
Sorry.
Wow. Well, that's a good. I mean, that's a good point right there too, because like there were, you know, some people that were like, oh, well, he's gay, so of course he was, you know, accused of like, you know, basically being like a pedophile, like trying to have sex with like a 14-year-old, or whatever. Like, yeah, so like there were people.
It was okay for him to try to have sex with Anthony Rapp. Yeah, when he was 14.
Yeah. Yeah, so like people were kind of conflating, you know, because it still happens. Just that right now, it's much easier to vilify trans people than it is gay people. Which again, I'm not, unlike J.K. Rowling, I'm not trying to divide the LGBTQ community. So I'm not saying this as a way to say, oh well, gay people, you should not feel like you're oppressed now. No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that like it's a clear thing, like just based on like observations of society, that like you can get away with it more, like in most crowds. Like you'll still get dragged for it if you're like famous, like J.K. Rowling is, which that's the other thing too. She acts like, oh well, I'm just expressing my opinions. Yeah, but you're an extremely famous person. Like you're one of the famous authors of all time, perhaps at this point.
Probably
she's
probably
certainly
the best-selling author of all time, I think. If not,
I think she is actually.
I mean, if not, I mean, maybe like, I don't know, maybe Shakespeare or somebody's more, but still. Yeah,
yeah, but he's had like, you know, 700 years.
That's what I'm saying. You know. Yeah, I'm just, you
know. So like one of her claims, like, again, most gender critical feminists, they completely misrepresent things, and they make them sound much worse than what they actually were. And except when it comes to trans people, and then every little thing a trans person has ever done that's bad then becomes all transgender people are bad because this one person did this one thing at this one time. And then when you actually look at that particular case, it's actually more nuanced in of itself than what they themselves are even claiming it to be. So like, but anyway, that's another whatever. I don't want to get down that rabbit hole, but like, so back in December of 2019, she posted something in support of this woman named Maya Forstater, who worked for like a charity type of organization. And of course, she said that she just had a philosophical belief that biology is what determines a person's sex, and that's she just believes that. But then she was fired because of the transgender activist liberal mob mentality, blah, blah, the SJWs, blah blah blah, whatever. So, and J.K. Rowling, because she has this prejudice, she's like, yeah, that's what happened, and even though that's not what happened. So what actually happened was she had been warned on several occasions prior to that, her stance was kind of causing a hostile work environment. Like the other people didn't really like that she was so vocal about these beliefs because, some of the coworkers might be trans, or they might know trans people. They might have, trans people in their family or whatever, that they don't want to hear this negative talk about them. So she wrote 150 transphobic tweets that very week, where her company decided that they were simply not going to renew her contract. She was not fired. Her contract was up, and they simply chose not to renew said contract. There is no law that says that they had to renew her contract, but she apparently thought that she was entitled to that, which is interesting because they claim, millennials are so entitled, but yet she thought she was entitled to just, having her contract renewed, which that wasn't how that particular job worked. So she, of course, claimed to be the victim in all of this, and that she was being oppressed by the evil transgender activists, i.e. trans people that just want to have rights. And then J.K. Rowling defended her on Twitter, and then people started criticizing her. So then she saw herself as the victim, etc. It's like, if I wrote like 150 racist tweets on my Twitter, like on a public Twitter, profile, and my job found out about it, I'm pretty sure I would get fired, and I'm pretty sure they would support that. But yet, when it comes to their prejudice, that's what we're saying. That's what can never be touched. It's there. Everyone with a prejudice thinks that. Well, of course, all these other prejudices are bad, and anyone who is that blatant in their bigotry, yes, they should get fired from their job because they are causing a hostile work environment, or at least have a great potential to do so. My prejudice is just facts, man. It's just logic. I mean, you're just so sensitive if you can't understand that,
Well,
which is gaslighting. But hey,
it's a logical thing. I mean, the thing is there's going to be a backlash if you have some sort of thing. I mean, whether it's people not going to your business because you post something, you got to expect some kind of backlash when you're going to be prejudiced. And the fact that they think they deserve to be able to say whatever the fuck they want. Like a friend of mine, her boss started posting a bunch of racist shit on her page, and then they lost a lot of clients at their place of business.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's why. Just saying.
Yeah,
and that's why I hate the term cancel culture, because a lot of the times I can understand when there's somebody trying to attack somebody and bring up stuff from the past that doesn't really line up, like with James Gunn, which I think was more of an attack on things. But when you have somebody in the present, like J.K. Rowling or this woman that was that didn't have her contract renewed, there's a difference between that and like what happened with James Gunn. There's it's just a little different. I mean, the thing is you got to be able to be accountable for what you say. Sure, you have freedom of speech or whatever in whatever country you're in, and but there's no freedom of consequences, and that's not cancel culture. But when somebody is actually canceled, which I still hate that term, because it's basically you're not canceled. Our shows get canceled. Yes, Cops got canceled and Live PD got canceled, but that was legitimately deserved. Especially if you want to find out more about that, listen to the podcast Running from Cops. It is an amazing podcast. It makes you want to hate those shows, which you should. But the whole idea of cancel culture is just annoying to me. But there are things where I think people need to have consequence. I think there's more of a consequence culture is what we should call it, because sure, you know, you're gonna not want to listen to Louis C.K. for a while, but eventually he might be okay because you can give people a chance to repent or to become better people.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying that everybody should start liking people if they start to do that or whatever. You know, you can have your own opinions. You know, that, like I said, you know, it's okay to, you know, have difference of opinions when it comes to music or artists or whatever, or pie. But
right.
But you know, but when it comes to bigotry, you really can't have difference of opinions because bigotry is bigotry. It's just really, I mean, it's just so annoying when people try to say, oh, they're just trying to cancel everybody. They're, you know, no, these people are canceling their fucking selves because of consequences.
Yeah. This has always been the case too. I mean, like if you were to like go back to like the 70s or whatever, and if like someone like if someone's boss like just happened to see like their employee in public and like just acting like completely messed up and like bigoted, like that boss probably would have fired that person. So it's like the only difference is that now you have a much greater chance of making yourself known to other people. Well, that's your choice if you want to do that or not. It's not being forced upon you. So like it's much easier now for people to find out what you say, but you are also making it easier for them to find you as well. So it's like a symbiosis type of thing. It's not like people are just being victims here. Like they, you know, they're choosing it. And a lot of people tend to have different personalities online than they do in person. And it's like, well, you know, that itself could cause a huge problem because, like, I mean, people are literally like splitting themselves in two. That's the whole other topic. But like, yeah, so it's like, yeah, it's consequence is much better than cancel. And I do, you know, hope that she changes her mind and she admits that she was deceived by a cult. And again, I don't use all these words I'm throwing around. I'm not throwing these words out, you know, like just for fun. Like I'm very deliberate in these words that I'm using because I mean them quite literally. There's an article that came out recently. I could probably post it later for you if you want to share it with the audience or whatever, our listeners, where it's literally the leaders of this group act they make it like a cult for real, like they prey upon women who are vulnerable. Usually they're like lesbians or bisexual women, but not always. And it's like just like how like white supremacists stuff like that, like once, like whenever they felt like this woman was like kind of like retreating a little bit, they would like bombard this woman with like texts and messages, like, and they would like send them articles of like, here's a video of a transgender quote woman beating up a real woman, like just to like get their emotions all stirred up again. So it's like they wouldn't give them like a break from the hatred, from the anger. That's literally how cults operate.
Hey Matt, do you want to take a break really quick and then we'll come back and talk more about this?
Yeah, sure.
Hey folks, this is Michael E. Cullen II from the podcast that you're listening to right now, along with
Matthew Haas.
We just wanted to tell you about our great podcast called Super. It's called All Too Real. And on that show, what do we do, Matt?
We watch biopics and then we talk about whether or not the movie matched up with the real story or not.
So
it was a lot more exciting than that, though.
Yeah. So we analyze the real story and the real story.
Get it?
Get it?
Real.
You know? Yeah, they're spelled differently, folks. You can guess which one I said which way.
Uh-huh.
Anyways, so sometimes we have a guest, sometimes we don't. But we talk about great movies like Shattered Glass and The Social Network and Futile and Stupid Gesture, among others. Those are some of the ones that we've covered so far, and we're going to cover a lot more. So please subscribe on Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you find your great, fun podcasts. And be sure to share it with your friends.
Do it.
And make sure you're not afraid to get all too real. Bye-bye. And we are back. So, what were we saying here about Miss Rowling?
Well, I was just saying, that this group that she's got herself involved with, this ideology that she's taken on, it literally acts as like a cult, and I mean that deliberately. An article just came out a few weeks ago about a woman that says that she was groomed by these gender critical feminists at a time in her life when she was really, really vulnerable. I mean, she was homeless. She was a lesbian. I mean, she's still a lesbian, and she didn't really have any support group, and she found herself involved in this gender critical group, and they were like kind of making her like a star within the movement, so to speak. And a lot of cults do that, especially when they bring someone new on board. They try to make them feel important. They try to make them like feel like, oh, like you've only been a part of our group for a few months and we already want to promote you. Nobody else would ever treat you this good, type of thing. It's a form of what cults.
It's what's called love bombing.
Yeah, literally, that's what it is.
Yeah.
So it was only within like the first 3 months of her being involved in with this group, they were already billed her to like speak at some conference in the UK, about how evil transgender people are. Oh, sorry, the trans activists, because regular transgender people, i.e., those who keep their mouths shut and know their place, they're fine. Anyone who goes beyond that is the dreaded trans activist that they fearmonger about. So, she's not even from the UK; she's from the United States, and already they're like, we're billing her like, you're going to be part of some international conference because we value you so much and all this kind of junk. And it was like she was using their talking points on Twitter, which it's like if you read one gender critical feminist, you've pretty much seen them all, because they all just regurgitate the same talking points, and it's as if they are reading from some kind of script. I don't know if they are, if there is such a book out there, but it seems like they are, because I've had people in my life, tell me these things that's, they believe this stuff, and I read J.K. Rowling and I read these things, and it's like not only are they saying the same things, it's like even their phrasing is very similar. So it's like there must be some kind of text out there that they're getting this from. I don't know, but it just seems too coincidental. Like when you're using the same phrasing as someone else, that's more than just advancing the same claim. Like, you know what I mean? Like there's something else going on, it seems like. So she kind of started pulling away just naturally. Like she wasn't really disillusioned by it, but she just had other stuff going on with her life. And she noticed that like when she spent like too much time away from these like gender critical feminists, they would start like bombarding her messages, like trying to like keep contact with her, like keep her in the fold, with their beliefs, and like would send her like articles that were meant to like make her angry. Like, here's an article of a transgender person attacking a real woman, and to make sure to kind of play off the whole thing of like, a transgender woman is really a man, and he's got his manly hands around her, and he's hurting a woman. This type of stuff that's meant to make you agitated and meant to keep you angry. And that's what cults do. I mean, that's what the neo-Nazis do. That's what all of the white supremacist groups do, is that they don't ever want you to be alone, because you start thinking for yourself then, and there's a potential for you to come to different conclusions. So they kind of want to keep you always, and they want to keep you agitated too. So it's not an accident why they send you that stuff, because they want you to be angry. Because when you're angry, you don't really think rationally. You're thinking in like a fear, like a fight or flight type of thing. So
yeah, I mean, that is definitely a stereotypical cult action, because they try to take you away from your family and your friends, and not necessarily totally, but they try to make sure that your thoughts aren't interfered with by like real rational thoughts from other people. Or
Yeah.
like, they, like, oh, if somebody dissents in the way that they're feeling, it's like, oh, that's not the way to think or something, and they want you to feel part of a family, but not your real family. That's just my observation of cults. Yeah.
It's what they, yes, I mean, it's how they all operate like that. So she eventually got out, and she wrote an article about this, and of course they're probably gonna then bash her, say, well, she wasn't grateful to us, or she's been brainwashed by the transgender people or whatever type of thing. It's like it's all, so yeah, I hope she will realize that she's made a terrible mistake, and that she'll apologize, and I mean a real sincere apology, not like an apology tour where it's all about her again. I mean like a sincere, honest, like not making it about herself where she's the victim, like just like, oh, I fucked up, I'm really sorry about that, and I'm gonna try, to do better. So yeah, I don't believe that people should, quote, be canceled forever, even though that word is not a good word, but like she's got such a massive platform, and she just doesn't acknowledge that. Like even in her essay, she's like sarcastically saying like, oh, of course, these people are saying that I'm literally killing trans people with my rhetoric. It's like, yeah, you are, though. Like you might not realize that or acknowledge that reality, but you are, because your platform is huge. You influence millions of people. You are a billionaire. You can change stuff. Like you can't just play dumb like, oh, little old me, little J.K. Rowling. No, you're not little old anyone. You're a massive influence on the world, whether you want to accept that reality or not. And just today, a Republican lawmaker cited her manifesto to support his view that trans people and gay people shouldn't have rights in this country. So it's all her essay is already having the influence that anyone with a brain could predict. Like,
exactly. I mean, I don't know. It's just annoying too when you got somebody that you respect, like J.K. Rowling, changing, like, or that you used to respect, or that you're a fan of the work of, deciding to do this type of, I don't know, stuff or whatever you want to call it. I don't know how to call it. Yeah.
It's sad, and it's depressing too.
It is. I mean, it's because it just sucks, because like in the whole idea of cancel culture, it's like, what do? Do you stop reading her books? Do you stop watching somebody's movies or listening to somebody's music or watching a sports team or something because somebody associated with it is doing something that you disagree with? It's like, do the actions of Kevin Spacey make American Beauty less of a movie?
Less of a good, yeah, right.
It's hard to say, you know what I mean?
It doesn't, but it's still it's kind of like, it's there's trauma involved, right? So it's like if you had a really bad, a bad like relationship breakup or whatever, and you see a picture of that person and at like some event or whatever, that event somewhat becomes tarnished a little bit for some people, because while the event itself was fun at its time, now that it's associated with that person, it kind of creates a feeling of like sourness. Not everyone, but a lot of people.
Or sometimes, like if you had a favorite movie or song together, when that comes on the radio or TV or whatever, you're like, ugh, even though the song is still good, it's just,
Right. Right, so it's like, and especially with J.K. Rowling too, what makes it more depressing is the fact that like her new beliefs, or maybe they're not very new, but her new stated admission that she's a gender critical feminist, i.e. a trans exclusive feminist, I wouldn't say she's a radical feminist because politically she's a moderate at best. So, but whatever. Is completely in opposition to the Harry Potter books message. I mean, one thing if someone like wrote a book and a book series or a movie or whatever, and that particular series didn't really have like a moral message to it, like if it was just like an action movie that was really popular, it didn't really have like an actual like message to it, that would be one thing. It would still suck because it's like, oh well, I like those movies and that guy who directed it's a jerk or whatever. But like J.K. Rowling, like the whole Harry Potter books are about like this, like one thing is about like accepting who you are. Like it's also too about like how sometimes our caregivers can be bad people, that they don't really care for us, they kind of just tolerate us, like how they literally had Harry sleep in a freaking cupboard like beneath the stair, like that was they put up with them essentially. Like they didn't really care about him. They barely give him enough food to eat as a child. I mean, that's why he was so skinny. So it's like they neglected him. She spares no expense at like depicting how awful the Dursleys are to him, and like so many details. Like for Christmas they would give him like one sock as a gift for Christmas, like just these really insulting gifts. Whereas the Weasleys, who are like considered to be a poor family, she was like knitting him a sweater every year, giving him cookies that she made from scratch, all these really loving, so it's like there's a message in there too about like sometimes your family's not your blood family, it's the family you create along the way. A lot of these really nice messages too, about prejudice, like the whole thing about Voldemort and the Death Eaters is that they're pure blood wizards, and they believe that the only true wizards are people who can trace their magic ancestry back centuries, perhaps all the way to recorded history. And people who are Muggle-born, they're called mudbloods, which literally means that their blood is tainted, it's not pure. This theme goes throughout all 7 books about, that the good wizards, they're fighting this type of prejudice because they don't want to see the society that these people want to build. And in the final book they almost succeed in building that society, and it's terrible. It's all about blood purity. I mean, they even took down a statue that used to show like wizards sort of like helping like the non-wizard people, because like there was kind of like a nice superiority complex, like, oh well, we're wizards and better than them, but we need to take care of them because we're better than them. Whereas like Voldemort literally just had them like standing on top of the Muggles and like magic is might, put them in their rightful place, type of thing. And so it's like she apparently thinks that's good now, though, when it comes to trans people. I mean, I guess she thinks now that trans people are like they're mudbloods, or they're mutagender or whatever, and the only pure genders are people who are quote born like that. And the other thing too is like another thing that TERFs do is that they claim that transgender people don't believe quote sex is real. Like trans people talk about and do more research on sex than anyone else in the world does. They would be the last person to literally say, yeah, there's no such thing as sex. No, that's not. It's an intentional misrepresentation of what people are actually saying. And the thing is too is that nobody really knows all of their sex characteristics. People have different chromosomes. Some people have there's 6 different like officially recognized like sexes according to like the scientists or whatever. Like they claim, oh, I'm just talking about biology. Okay, well, even with your rigid definition, there's still more than just female and male. There's intersex people who used to be called hermaphrodites. So are they just like completely ignoring these people from the conversation? I mean, I guess they are, because they've been around for forever. So it's like, I guess they don't count in this conversation of quote biology. Like they think that trans people just want to like create this weird world where like anything goes, man, and biology's not real, man. It's like, no, it's just that biology is more complex than what you're depicting it as. for propaganda purposes.
And
that's all that's happening.
And the worst argument is where they think it is that somebody can just decide, like, I decide for this 5 minutes that I'm female.
Right. No one does that.
Just so I can go use a Target bathroom or something. No, that's
right.
not what you're doing.
Yeah, no one does that at all. And that's the thing too. She makes this argument in her manifesto where it was really interesting because it kind of I don't know. I think she told on herself. I don't think she meant to do this, but I think she told on herself at one point because she says, "Oh, I'm friends with this transgender person. You know, she's got her one trans friend to prove that she's not transphobic or whatever, which is, you know, I have one black friend, so therefore I'm not racist or whatever." But and her argument that she makes is, "Oh, but this person was like, she's much older than I am, and you know, even though she was born male, I've never seen her as anything but being a woman. But where she came from, it was a much more difficult time, you know, to be trans and to transition. And so it's like, okay, so your argument is that was the good old days, like where it was harder for your friend to be herself. How is that a good argument to make? Like, it just makes you sound like a terrible person. Like, I mean,
well, it's like in a certain way. Okay, like I watch the show Brooklyn Nine-Nine a lot, and one of the main characters, Captain Holt, is gay, and he created a organization when he was younger in the police force that was for gay black police officers, and he there's an episode where he has a guy that finally challenges him to be the president of that organization. And his argument at first is, well, this guy doesn't know what it's like to suffer, to try to, you know, come up and be treated like shit and whatever, you know, as a black gay officer. So what does he know about the pain and stuff like that? And then the character of Gina points out to him, well, isn't that what you were fighting for, that people wouldn't have to go through all that shit?
Right.
So the thing is we live in a society where it should be easier for people to be who they are and not have to jump over hurdles to get to the same place just to get equality. You know, they're not asking for, you know, more than other people. They're just asking for, you know, equal rights, not, you know, special rights. You know, that's all it is. It's just so sad that people think that somehow if we give this group of people rights, it's going to somehow take away my rights. It's not, because, you know, it's like, oh, we're going to let gays get married, so that just, you know, just totally ruins the sanctity of marriage. No, it doesn't.
It just expands it, and it makes it more sanctified because more people are getting married. So
it's like, oh, we let trans people have rights. That means that, you know, gay. I mean, gay people don't have rights, or straight people don't have rights, or black people don't have rights. No, it doesn't. Well, they still have those rights.
Yeah, it is just basically just a veneer for prejudice is really all it comes down to, because she makes that very clear later on in the article where she says, you know, she makes it all about herself by saying that, oh, well, I was sexually assaulted by my ex-husband, and that's why I care so much about this issue. It's like, okay, was your husband a transgender woman? I don't understand. I mean, even then it's still a prejudice, but I at least understand the conceptual logic of that. Like, oh, well, a transgender person hurt me, so now I'm weary about transgender people. But if it's like saying, I don't like black people because, you know, a Chinese person hit me in the face once. Like, how? Like, I don't understand. Like, I don't even understand the logic of that. Like,
it's like
it just seems.
It's basically like saying, oh, I don't like country music because I heard an AC/DC song that I didn't like.
Right. And yeah, I mean, I know you don't like AC/DC, but
no, but what I'm getting at is they're nothing alike.
It's like a total. I don't even understand what she was going for at at that point. But she does make so many weird arguments, and again, it's so hard to go through all of them because there's so many of them. But like another one that she says is, she's like kind of like how you were talking about Captain Holt saying like, oh well, he didn't have to go through what I went through, and then Gina's like, well, yeah, that's the whole point. So like her argument here is, oh well, there's been a huge uptick of people identifying as transgender, in recent years than in the past, and it's like, and she's trying to say that like the government is making it easier on people to like just claim that they're transgender or whatever, and it's like, isn't that kind of the point? Like yeah, there was less before because there was less people that were willing to brave the storm and basically be beaten down and be examples, so of course, like when things get better, you're gonna see more people. Like
it's the same logic as Trump saying that we shouldn't test more people for COVID because then there's going to be more cases.
Yeah, exactly. It's literally the same logic. Like it's stupid logic, but
yes,
it's literally the same exact argument. Like, oh, and it's interesting because I thought that she hated transgender women the most at first because a lot of her tweets were pretty much aimed at them. Like they were like these predators that really want to hurt real women. They want to infiltrate women's only spaces and I guess like gather up intel for like the huge eternal. It's interesting because like it kind of reminds me of like the fundamental theories of Marxism. Like Marxism pretty much believes like that there's been like an eternal struggle between like the workers and like the capitalist class, like those who own the means of production versus the workers, and this has always been ever since civilization, like before we like left, like before like when we started actually building like towns and building things, like that's been like the struggle. Well, TERFs kind of have that view, but it's based on sexuality. There's an eternal struggle between female and male, female being good, male being evil. And so like it makes sense from their twisted logic that like a transgender woman would be seen as sort of like a fifth column, like someone's from the enemy camp gathering intel from the good people, bringing back the war secrets from the enemy, and then launching their attack. I mean, it's extremely paranoid view of viewing the world, but hey, so I think, but by that same logic, then that then means they think transgender men are even worse because they were, quote, born female. They were born on the good side. So it's kind of like the KKK where, I've heard KKK people say this on multiple times, that they'll actually admit that they hate black people less than they hate white people who defend black people, because in their minds, black people are inferior. They can't help being born the way they are. That's just how it is. They didn't hit the genetic lottery or whatever, But a white person should know better. They're already on the winning team, right? They should. So there's like a special type of hatred for like a traitor, like a race traitor. And in Harry Potter, you were called a blood traitor if you married a Muggle, or if you married a Muggle-born witch and you were a pureblood, you were called a blood traitor. And she literally based that off of racism, like the race traitor rhetoric from the KKK and the Nazis. She literally got that inspiration from those groups. But now she apparently believes that, you're a gender traitor, if you're, yeah.
That's just really annoying because it's like she can't see what she's doing. You know what I mean? It's like you can't see that what you're saying is exactly what you were preaching against in your books.
Yeah, 7 fucking books.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people don't write a 7-book book series. A lot of people write maybe 3 or 4 books. They don't write 7. So that's a long series. And
I mean, there weren't that many Twilight books. There weren't that many, whatever have you books. Like there weren't that many 50 Shades books. And I mean, you don't write that many books on a series to make a point, and then
you don't. Yeah, and it seems like, so like she made this really disgusting argument against transgender men because it was like, well, you were born female, and you want to basically forsake us to be men so that way you'll have extra rights. Like she thinks that transgender men are like living high on the hog or some shit like that. Like, no, are you fucking kidding me? Like, transgender men are persecuted probably as much as transgender women, just in different ways. And again, that's the whole thing. You can, like, she doesn't think that people can have unique experiences that are equally valid. So she thinks that you have to have the same exact experience, and that's the core of the gender critical argument, is that being born female in of itself is such a unique experience that nothing can compare to it. Therefore, you can't really be a woman unless you were, quote, born female. It's like, well, the thing is, maybe you don't have to compare those experiences. Maybe you can say, you know, being transgender is its own experience that's unique, and it doesn't, even though it's not the same exact experience as someone, quote, being born female, that doesn't automatically make it invalid. It's just a different experience. And I tell you, these experiences aren't fun. You know, she, like a lot of like someone told me once was, oh, well, transgender women, they quote undergo what's, quote, male socialization. That's one of their buzzwords, and it basically means, oh, well, they were raised as males, they were raised as boys, they grew up with the culture of being boys and men, and those attitudes and ideas have infected their minds, so that even if they don't want to, they will still sometimes act out as men, which we all know are terrible and evil, unlike us women who are pure as white snow. And it's like, that is a really weird, paranoid way of viewing the world, in my opinion, because transgender women, people who are, quote, raised as boys, they hated the fact that they were raised as boys. This wasn't like a fun time for them, or like, oh, right, I get the best of both worlds. No, it was the worst of both worlds, because while people were trying to like do like these stereotypical boy things to them, they didn't like doing it, and they weren't really good at it. So then they were constantly being told, like, well, why can't you do this right, or why are you doing this, and you're doing this wrong, and you should like these toys, or you should play this game, or you should blah blah blah. You know, the list goes on and on. To say like, oh, well, they were socialized as males, therefore they have privilege. They fucking hated that shit. That was like the worst time of their life. Like, to then use that against them, to say that's what makes you privileged, it's just disgusting. I mean, this is during a time where they wanted to commit suicide for a lot of these people. They hated this at the time. It's just there's no more disgusting of a thing to do that, and to twist that around and go, ah ha ha ha, you got male privilege because the boys used to call you a sissy and beat the shit out of you at recess. Wait, what? Like, like
good times,
like,
good
okay,
times.
Yeah, what? That's some great privilege you got there. Yeah. Are you fucking mad? But anyway, I'm getting emotional here, but it's just bullshit, and again, it kind of sets up then the whole dichotomy then that, you know, just like with anyone with the prejudice, anyone who's part of the targeted group that they don't like, they have to be perfect, and if they do anything wrong, it just proves everything they believed about that group of people. Fortunately, I had to deal with that shit with the anti-Islamic stuff, so I see right through this rhetoric, because it's the same type of rhetoric no matter what group you're prejudiced against. It's this idea that, like, you know, it's basically it's my saints versus your sinners, essentially, is what it is. It's, you know, I'll take the best of my group, stack it against the worst of your group, and that just proves everything I need to know about how I feel about you. That's essentially what it is, and it's bullshit, but that's, yeah. So she goes after transgender men in this manifesto, basically saying that the only reason why they want to be men is because they don't like being women, because they're too oppressed. So they're trying to escape oppression by being men. It's bizarre. And she makes this weird argument about how, oh, well, if I was born 30 years later than I was, I might want to have had transitioned into being a man. Like, just thinking like that's the only reason why anyone would be transgender is for social status. I mean, come on. Like,
because going through a surgery and all that stuff is really, or psychology and, you know, or psychiatric, you know, whatever all the stuff that they have to go through to transition is just so easy. It's like taking a pill or something, you know?
Yeah, it's so easy. Plus, too, she thinks that it's too. The current standards are too liberal, and the thing is, they're already very conservative and strict. I mean, as of right now, it takes about 2 to 3 years just to get started in your transition in the UK, and she thinks that's too lax because, again, she wants to go back to the days where her transgender quote friend, her token transgender, that she decides whether or not she'll see her as a woman. Which, again, that's the other. That I was going to get back to that point. I kind of got sidetracked. So she kind of told on herself. She goes, even though this person was born male, I'm not quoting directly. I'm quoting from memory. Even though she was born male, I've never seen her as anything but a woman. So there's the rub. She wants the power to decide who she'll decide is a woman. She wants that authority. She wants that power.
But it would have been wrong if she met this person when they were still biologically a male.
Right.
And then they transitioned. Like, if they decided to transition tomorrow, then it'd be wrong. In her mind, probably. And she,
exactly.
And she wouldn't view that person as a female.
No, I don't think she even does. Now, I think she just said that to try to make make her seem more compassionate than she really is. I don't really think she even has.
I mean, logically, though, it does make sense, though, in certain ways. I'm not saying that I agree with her, but what I'm saying is she met this person as a woman. So that's what she's viewed that person as. It's like if you...
Right.
If I, meet somebody as a football player, I think of them as a football player. Not that I'm comparing the two, but you know what I mean. It's like I didn't meet this person as a child when they weren't playing football. So when you meet a person at a certain point in your life, that's how you view that person. So really, she had no choice in the situation of viewing this person as a female because that's how she met this person. So her choice to view this person as a female is based on the fact that she met this person as a female. But if she met somebody as a male who decided to become a female, then she probably wouldn't make the same choice.
Right.
It's
just
it's
bizarre.
The first impression sort of thing on her, and I don't know. Anyways, do you want to take a really quick break here, and then we can wrap things up?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Hi, folks. This is Michael E. Cullen II from the podcast that you're listening to right now, along with
manager Matthew Haas.
You got promoted?
Yes.
Damn it. Okay. Anyways, folks, do you like the show Superstore? I don't know. I asked the folks, and nobody's answering me
because they're not here.
Oh,
but we love
damn it! Yeah, we love it though. Okay, folks, if you like it as much as we do, you're really going to like the Super Story podcast, which is a podcast where Matthew and I go episode by episode and give our little opinions and thoughts on it. Sometimes we have guests, sometimes we don't. Just depends on how we're feeling.
Yeah.
And, so if you like this podcast and like our little crazy banter,
then you should definitely check this out. Or I might get sad. And when I get sad, it gets pretty sad. So
I can't deal with him when he's sad.
No one can really. So
yeah. So check out Super Story Podcast right here where you get this podcast, Super Story Podcast. And we are back to wrap up our first part. We've decided now during the break that we're going to make this a two-parter. Our first major two-parter. We're going to talk more about the stuff next week. We'll have 2 episodes in a row talking about this controversial topic. We've got more that we can talk about next week besides just J.K. Rowling. We've got stuff about Hartley Sawyer and Crystalia, or Delia, or however you say his name, and other people that have recently kind of been canceled, plus, the good old ones like Kevin Spacey and Michael Jackson, and, different people over the years, and Bill Cosby, and stuff like that we can probably talk about a little bit. Louis C.K., all the greats.
Yeah.
all the greats of cancel culture. We'll be counting down the hits.
Yeah, man, the classics.
Great.
Oh god.
That's sad. So, anything else you want to say before we go, Matt? Or
yeah, I just kind of wanted to read an excerpt from the. Oh, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Oh, cool. I just wanted to read an excerpt from the Deathly Hallows because I do sincerely hope that she has a change of heart and that she really did just kind of get hooked into a ideology that's harmful. I mean, this could be a lesson, really, that even the greatest people sometimes can find themselves in darkness, and they can still find themselves back. So hopefully she does that. It's not too late. To change. I mean, the road to forgiveness might be long, but I think a lot of the people who have been upset with her, especially trans fans, they love these books, and that's the reason why they're so heartbroken, is because they were so emotionally invested in them and into her. So that who knows, the forgiveness might come sooner than what she would expect. Because I think a lot of people, when they go down a dark path, not all of them are evil. Some of them are, but not all of them are. And I think a lot of them, they think that they themselves are beyond redemption. So they think the only way forward is just to keep going in the direction that they are going, which just makes it worse. But so I hope that, that she can kind of find a light and go that way. You just send me some. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So here's the excerpt. This is from the Deathly Hallows. This is during Snape's memories, after Snape gets killed by Voldemort, because Voldemort thinks that he possesses the Elder Wand and he needs to kill Snape in order for him to be the true master of it. So he just kills him, not because he's mad at him, but he just doesn't care, because he served his purpose long enough, and now he's done done rendering what he can. So he just killed him. And so right before he dies, he tells Harry to collect his tears, which allows him to have access to some of his memories. And you put it into Dumbledore's thing. It's called a pensieve, which is like a device where you can literally go in someone's memories and watch them unfold in real time. So this is part of it, and he was Snape was friends with Harry's mom, Lily Evans. That was his best friend for a long time, but he got seduced by the dark arts people, the people who believe in purebloods, and he himself was a half-blood, and he wanted to feel power. He wanted to see what power looked like. So he joined up with this group and kind of viewed Lily as like the exception to the rule. She's one of the good ones. She's one of the good mudbloods. I won't call her a mudblood to her face because I respect her, not her kind, her individually. So he's not a racist. That's what a lot of people say. Anyway, so so I said Harry watched again as Snape left the Great Hall after sitting his OWL in defense against the dark arts. Watched as he wandered away from the castle and strayed inadvertently close to the place beneath the beech tree where James, Sirius, Lupin, and Pettigrew sat together. But Harry kept his distance this time because he knew what happened after James had hoisted Severus into the air and taunted him. He knew what had been done and said, and it gave him no pleasure to hear it again. He watched as Lily joined the group and went to Snape's defense. Distantly, he heard Snape shout at her in his humiliation and his fury the unforgivable word, mudblood. The scene changed. I'm sorry. I'm not interested. I said I'm sorry. Save your breath. It was nighttime. Lily, who was wearing a dressing gown, stood with her arms folded in front of the portrait of the fat lady at the entrance to Gryffindor Tower. I only came out because Mary told me you were threatening to sleep here. I would have done. I never meant to call you mudblood. It just Slipped out? There was no pity in Lily's voice. It's too late. I've made excuses for you for years. None of my friends can understand why I even talk to you. You and your precious little Death Eater friends. You see, you don't even deny it. You don't even deny that's what you're aiming to be. You can't wait to join you-know-who, can you? He opened his mouth, but closed it without speaking. I can't pretend anymore. You've chosen your way, I've chosen mine. No, listen, I didn't mean to call me Mudblood, but you call everyone of my birth Mudblood, Severus. Why should I be any different? He struggled on the verge of speech, but with a contemptuous look, she turned and climbed back through the portrait hall. The corridor dissolved, and the scene took a little longer to reform. Harry seemed to fly through shifting shapes and colors until... Sorry, I'm trying to find the page. Colors until his surroundings solidified again, and he stood on a hilltop, forlorn and cold in the darkness, the wind whistling through the branches of a few leafless trees. The adult Snape was panting, turning on the spot, his wand gripped tightly in his hand, waiting for something or for someone. His fear infected Harry too, even though he knew that he could not be harmed, and he looked over his shoulder, wondering what it was that Snape was waiting for. Then a blinding, jagged jet of white light flew through the air. Harry thought of lightning, but Snape had dropped to his knees, and his wand had flown out of his hand. Don't kill me! That was not my intention. Any sound of Dumbledore apparating had been drowned by the sound of the wind in the branches. He stood before Snape with his robes whipped around him, and his face was illuminated from below in the light cast by his wand. Well, Severus, what message does Lord Voldemort have for me? No message. I'm here on my own account. Snape was wringing his hands. He looked a little mad, with his straggling black hair flying around him. I come with a warning. No, a request, please. Dumbledore flicked his wand. The leaves and branches still flew through the night air around them. Silence fell on the spot where he and Snape faced each other. What request could a Death Eater make of me? The prophecy, the prediction, Trelawney. Ah, yes, said Dumbledore. How much did you relay to Lord Voldemort? Everything I heard, said Snape. That is why, it is for that reason, he thinks it means Lily Evans. The prophecy did not refer to a woman, said Dumbledore. It spoke of a boy born at the end of July. You know what I mean? He thinks it means her son. He is going to hunt her down and kill them all. If she means so much to you, said Dumbledore, surely Lord Voldemort will spare her. Could you not ask for mercy for the mother in exchange for the son? I have asked him. You disgust me, said Dumbledore. And Harry had never heard so much contempt in his voice. Anyways, it just kind of goes on like that. But like just that whole logic, like she herself has a part of the story where Snape is like, oh, you're one of the good mudbloods. I'll never call you a mudblood, but everyone else who's like you is bad. And then yet she's like, she is Severus Snape now, like in a way, like she has potential. She's not. I mean, I felt bad calling her Voldemort. She might not be Voldemort, but she's definitely Severus Snape. She's found herself in with this group of people who are bad news, bad business, and you know, who knows? You know, I'd hate for this to be the case, but who knows? Maybe her words are going to have an effect, and some poor transgender person is going to be killed because of what she said, and then that's going to be her Snape moment of like, oh my god, like I now need to spend the rest of my life rectifying this wrong. I mean, I'd hate for that to happen, but you know.
I mean, and especially when you're somebody like her who has such power in the world because people respect her and love her books and her and everything that she's done really in literature. It's like you have a responsibility to be a better person, in my opinion. And
Right.
it's sad that she's not. I mean, but then we do have people in this world worshiping Donald Trump. I mean, it's like, it's, you know, and we've had in the past where people thought David Duke was a great guy. You know, it's just people that probably still do. It's just so sad that people latch on to hate so easily. I don't know. I'm about to cry. It's just so sad. I don't know what to say. Yeah, sorry, I was about to cry there.
Me too.
So, yeah, so I don't know. Anything else before we go?
No, just in general. I mean, like this is like I've always been someone that's really been focused on justice since I was a kid. Didn't matter who was being treated unjustly. It was just a value that I've always had, and some people don't like that. I've been called the Brita of my friend groups for you know, because of, you know, Brita, by the way, is a character in the TV show Community.
Yes.
And a lot of people make fun of her because she cares about things that actually matter, but she's kind of ham-fisted in the way of how she does it. But also too, just like, you know, on a personal level, I mean, you know, I myself sort of identify as non-binary. I mean, I pretty much dress and present myself the way I've always have. There's no, you know, you saw me walking down the street, you just be like, oh, that's just, you know, any other dude, and, you know, I'm okay with looking that way. It's because it's not really about how you dress, which is interesting too, because, you know, they themselves, you know, these gender critical feminists themselves say, you know, gender is not a costume, you know, liking Barbie dolls does not make you a woman, blah blah blah. It's like, okay, well, that's literally what trans people are saying though themselves, is that, like, they're not saying that, like, oh, well, I need to wear a dress, I need to put on 10,000 pounds of makeup, you know, to be a woman. Like you're both are literally saying the same exact thing, but you're saying it for different reasons, you know.
Yeah. I don't know.
So it's, yeah,
just a fucked up world we live in right now. And that we probably have always lived in.
Yeah.
And sadly, to a point, might always will. I hope things start to change more. I don't know. All I gotta say is Black Lives Matter, Trans Lives Matter. I'm not gonna say all lives matter, because until all lives do matter, I'm not gonna say all lives matter, and that's the point, people. That's why it's considered.
Exactly.
That's why it's considered bigoted.
Yeah.
So yeah, gonna link some charities in the show notes for helping out Black Lives Matter, people with COVID, and trans people as well. Donate to those if you can, or whatever cause you feel like will help the world. Don't donate to like something like the KKK or whatever, but you know, just saying.
Right.
Be good to each other, you know. Treat people with the same, totally. You know, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, as it's said in almost every religious belief, and even in atheism. You know, it's just be good to each other. That's all you got to do. All right. That's it. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to All Too Real 2 podcast, a Cullen Park production. Produced and edited by Michael E. Cullen II. Music by Matthew Hawes. Subscribe and share the show. Visit us at cullenpark.com.